A bank teller I had never met slid a printed page across the counter and asked, very gently, if I had someone I could call. My checking account had $11 in it. My savings, the account that was supposed to hold the 18 years of my life I had poured into it, had been closed in March. It was October, and the woman who had managed every dollar I owned for the last 12 years was my best friend, my maid of honor, the person I trusted more than my own husband. My name is Claire. I am 46 years old, and until that Tuesday, I believed I was, if not wealthy, then safe. I had done everything right. I saved. I lived below my means. I drove the same car for 11 years. I was the kind of person who felt a small private pride at being responsible with money. That pride, it turned out, was the most expensive thing I owned. Renata and I met at 23, two assistants at the same firm, eating lunch on the same cold stairwell because neither of us could afford anything better. She was sharper than me, funnier than me, the kind of person who made you feel chosen when she turned her attention your way. When she left to become a financial advisor, I was her very first client. I signed the papers at her kitchen table. We toasted with cheap wine. I thought I was helping my friend build her dream. For 12 years, it was perfect. Every quarter, Renata sent me a beautiful statement on heavy cream paper. My balances climbed, slowly and steadily, exactly the way responsible money is supposed to grow. When I had questions, she answered them over dinner, drawing little charts on napkins. When my father died and left me a small inheritance, she folded it in for me. She cried at my wedding. She was godmother to my son. There was no line, anywhere, between my friend and the woman who held my future. The first thing that was wrong did not feel wrong. It felt like a favor. I wanted to buy a small lake cabin, a place for my son to have summers. I called Renata to move some money. She was warm as always, but she suggested I wait. The market was about to turn, she said. Pulling out now would cost me. She was so certain, so kind about it, that I felt foolish for asking. I told the seller no. I told my son maybe next year. I trusted her completely. It happened twice more over 2 years. Each time I reached for my own money, there was a reason, gentle and reasonable, why now was not the time. A tax consequence, a penalty, a fund that was about to rebound. I never saw a dollar of it because I never actually needed it, not urgently. I was saving it. That is the cruelty of what she did. A patient thief does not rob a person who is spending. She robs a person who is waiting. Then my husband, Mark, was offered a job in another state. We decided to move. And moving meant the one thing 12 years of trust had never required. It meant I actually needed my money, all of it, in cash, to buy a house. I called Renata on a Monday and told her the news. There was a pause on the line. Just a half second. At the time, I thought it was happiness. Looking back, I know exactly what that silence was. It was a woman realizing the clock had finally run out. For 3 weeks, the transfer did not come. There was always a reason, a wire hold, a compliance review, a signature page lost in email, then found, then somehow lost again. Renata was apologetic and breezy, and every delay had the texture of ordinary bank friction, the kind we have all sat through. But the closing date on our new house was coming, and the money I had saved my entire adult life simply would not move, so I did the thing I had never once done in 12 years. I drove to the bank myself. The teller could not find the accounts under my name. She found them under a different structure, an entity I did not recognize, with Renata listed as the authorized manager. And then she found the dates. The savings account closed in March. A line of withdrawals going back not months, but years. Small at first. Then not small. When the teller asked if I had someone to call, I realized the only person I would ever have called about money was the person who had taken it all. I want to tell you that I screamed, or wept, or drove to her house and put a brick through her window. I did none of those things. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot for 2 hours, and I did not cry. Something colder than crying had happened. I understood, with a terrible clarity, that the woman I had loved for 23 years had been studying me that whole time. Not as a friend, as a mark. And the only way I would ever get my life back was to be smarter than she thought I was. I did the responsible thing first. I called the police. A kind, tired officer took my report and explained, almost apologetically, that this would be a civil matter. I had signed the papers. I had granted her authority. On paper, I had handed her the keys. He told me to get a lawyer and prepare for a long, expensive fight against someone who knew exactly how to make money disappear. I hung up and understood that the system was not built to save me. It was built to make my consent look like permission. The lawyer was worse because the lawyer was honest. He said Renata had likely structured everything through layered entities, that the money was probably already moved offshore or spent, and that even if I won a judgment in 3 years, I would be collecting from a stone. He said the painful truth out loud. People like Renata do not get caught by victims. They get caught when they get greedy or sloppy, or when someone gives them a reason to do something stupid. I wrote that last part down, so I stopped being the victim and I started being the accountant. For 2 weeks, at my kitchen table, after my son was asleep, I rebuilt 12 years of my own financial life from every scrap I could find. Old emails, screenshots of statements, tax returns, and I found the thread that would unravel her. The beautiful cream paper statements Renata had sent me for 12 years did not match a single record the actual bank had on file. She had not just stolen my money, she had built me a paper world to live in while she did it. Those fake statements were the mistake. Stealing money is a civil dispute. Manufacturing false documents to conceal it, mailing them across state lines, quarter after quarter for 12 years, is something else entirely. It is fraud. It is federal. The tired officer could not help me, but I now knew there were people whose entire job was to care about exactly this, and they did not need me to win a civil suit. They needed evidence, and I was the only person alive who had 12 years of it. But evidence of old fraud was not enough. A clever lawyer could argue I had misread my own statements, that it was sloppiness, not crime. I needed her to do it again, fresh, on the record, while someone was watching. I needed Renata to commit the fraud one more time, knowing I was the one asking. And to do that, I had to become the one thing she would never expect from the friend she had robbed. I had to become bait, and I had to make her believe she was still winning. I called her. I made my voice small and embarrassed, the voice of the Claire she had always known. I told her the bank had confused me, that I clearly did not understand my own accounts, that I was so sorry for the panic. I could hear her relax through the phone, that old warmth flooding back, the sound of a predator deciding the prey had not noticed the wound. She said, of course, she would sort everything out. She would prepare new statements and walk me through it all in person. Come to my office, she said. Friday. Before Friday, I did 3 things. I went back to the bank, not to the teller, but to the fraud department, and I gave them everything. I contacted the state agency that licenses financial advisors, and I learned I was not the first complaint about Renata, only the first with 12 years of matching paper. And I met 2 investigators who explained very carefully what I could and could not do, what I could carry into that office, and what would happen if she said the words they needed to hear out loud. Friday came. Renata's office was beautiful, all glass and warm wood, paid for, I now understood, with the lake cabin my son never got. She hugged me at the door, and she smelled like the same perfume she had worn for 20 years. She had prepared a fresh statement for me, crisp and reassuring, showing a healthy balance that did not exist in any real account on Earth. She slid it across the desk, exactly the way the teller had slid the real one, and she smiled and said, "See, I told you there was nothing to worry about." I asked her the questions the investigators had given me, soft and trusting, the questions only a guilty woman could answer wrong. Where was my savings account? Why did the bank not see it? Was this statement real? And Renata, comfortable, certain, 12 years into never being caught, looked her best friend in the eye, and lied. She told me the account was active. She told me the bank was simply behind. She told me this document, the one she had fabricated that morning, was completely accurate. She said it slowly, kindly, so I would understand. I did not raise my voice. I did not reach for my phone or say a clever line. I simply thanked her, and I told her I felt so much better, and I hugged her one last time, and I walked out to my car. And then I drove 3 blocks to where the 2 investigators were parked, and I handed them the fresh fabricated statement, and I told them every word she had said. They already knew. They had heard all of it. The friend who taught me to trust her had just narrated her own federal crime to a room she did not know was listening. It moved faster than I ever imagined. The fabricated statement, dated that morning, was the keystone. It proved the fraud was not a historical misunderstanding, but an active, ongoing crime she would commit to my face. Within a month, federal investigators had subpoenaed the layered entities the lawyer swore I would never crack. And inside them, they did not just find my money. They found the savings of 9 other people, a retired teacher, a widower, a young couple who had trusted the warmest woman they had ever met. Renata called me 11 times the week the subpoenas landed. I did not answer. The last voicemail was not warm. It was the real voice, the one under the perfume, and it told me I had no idea what I had done, that I had ruined everything, that I was supposed to be the one person who never looked too closely. I saved that voicemail. I gave it to the investigators. It was, in its way, the most honest thing she had said to me in 23 years. She took a plea, 11 counts of wire fraud, mail fraud, and falsifying records. The fabricated statement she made for me, the one designed to keep me calm, became the clearest single piece of evidence against her, because intent is hard to prove until a person commits the crime knowingly on a Friday for an audience. The money was not all recovered. Some of it truly was gone, spent on the glass office and the cars, and a life built entirely on other people's patience. But the structure broke, and the 9 other people learned they were not alone. People ask me if I feel guilty for sitting across from a woman I loved for 23 years and letting her hang herself with her own kindness. I used to wait for the guilt to come. It never did. What I feel instead is something quieter. I think about the version of me who sat in that bank parking lot with $11 to her name, and I am grateful she did not put a brick through a window. Because a brick is loud, and it ends in a police report with your name on it. Patience is silent, and it ends with the truth on tape. If you take one thing from my story, take this. The people who rob you most completely are almost never strangers. They are the ones you have already decided to trust, because trust is the one lock they never have to pick. I gave Renata the keys to my life at her kitchen table when I was 23, with cheap wine and an open heart, and she spent 23 years deciding when to use them. I do not regret being a person who trusts. I have only learned to read the statement myself. There is one last thing, and it is the part I think about most. After the plea, one of the investigators told me something almost as an afterthought. They said the reason people like Renata operate for decades is not that they are brilliant. It is that their victims are ashamed. Most people who are robbed by someone they love never report it, because admitting it means admitting how completely they were fooled. Renata did not survive 12 years on skill. She survived on our embarrassment. The moment I stopped being ashamed, she had nothing left. So if this happened to you, or if a small, cold voice is telling you to finally look closely at the person who handles your money, hear me. Your shame is the only thing protecting them. It is not loyalty to keep their secret. It is not kindness to look away. The bravest thing I ever did was let a stranger at a bank counter see my face on the worst day of my life, and then refuse to be quiet about it. I got back far less than Renata took, but I got back the one thing she truly stole. I got back the truth. If her story stayed with you, do one thing for me. Hit like and subscribe. There is a new betrayal every week.